Does it work? Come on. Hooray! All right, welcome gamers and geeks to another game recap. Had a little bit of trouble with the camera, but it looks like it's working now. Yay! Um, so, for those of you who have never watched one of these videos before, I am Anthony M, the DM, and I run games of D&D on the Games and Geekery Discord server. There's a link below if you'd like to join us listening on the games and possibly even join us for a game or two. It's fun. Even have some free one-shots available on Thursday. Trying out a new setting, so I need people to volunteer to try it out. So, yeah, may end up being more than a one-shot. See how see if the new setting concept works. But anyway, on Sunday we had the Blood of the Dragon campaign, where so this is set in the scenario is that the party is trying to protect a little solar dragon from a cult of vampires led by an ancient, powerful spellcaster vampire / lich called Majister. And yes, it's a little bit overkill that it's both a vampire and a lich, but I figured that, being a vampire and being immortal, he'd learn a few extra tricks to make sure that if his body was destroyed, he could always come back. Without having to have servants, scoop up the dust and pour blood on it. So anyway, there's been a big event take place in in the city of Gate, which at the moment has distracted Magister and his cult. So the party have had a little bit of a reprieve from the almost constant onslaught of undead and other horrible creatures coming their way. And so they took the opportunity in this game to go get some diamonds. They decided to go to the Dwarven lands to get these diamonds because they knew that the Dwarven population had been drastically depleted by a Tarrasque attack. The dwarves that were still alive were focusing their efforts on mining the Tarrasque, producing a mineral called terraskine, in the hopes that the Tarrasque would never be able to heal itself back up enough to come back. And the items they've made from the terraskine, the dwarves have for sale. So there are quite a few items while they were there, including first they went mining for diamonds, and they rolled really well for finding a diamond vein, and for the damage that they did to the rock face. I was going to try and make it harder and make them actually look for the diamonds, but like I said, they rolled really freaking well on their perception checks. So they ended up, especially when they started using other methods rather than just mining with a pick, such as eldritch blasting the the rock face, or even making use of solar flares, radiant energy breath. To just laser cut right through the rock face. They ended up with quite a lot of diamonds, and they used some of the smaller diamonds they mined to buy new weapons and armor made out of terraskine. So terraskine is harder than iron and steel weapons, and therefore much less likely to break. The weapon, because it's a crystalline structure, you're actually able to get a sharper edge on a bladed weapon than you can with metals. So they're non-magical, but you do get a +1 bonus to attacks and damage if it's a bladed weapon. And because it's less breakable, there's a +1 bonus to AC for any magic, any armor made out of it. I've hinted that because it's made from the carapace and body of a Tarrasque merged with stone, that it may have some magically reflective properties as well, but the party haven't experimented with that at all. The main drawback of Terraskeen is that you can't make bow weapons out of it because it has no flexibility at all, with it being crystal. So yeah, they mined out a lot of diamonds and used the excess diamonds to hire a cart, and even bought some, made arrangements with the Terraskeen quarry to have slabs of Terraskeen, great big chunks of it, bricks of it, loaded up onto the cart and brought back. And so far, this session had been a lot of role play, a lot of mining and grinding. So the part of the reason why they were doing this, why they were after diamonds, is because one of the NPC characters that had been hanging around the party was a dragon wormling called Cadmus. He's a black steel dragon, and he'd got himself blasted apart by the sickly radiant breath of a solar Dracolich. And so, yeah, the Giddy, who had a steel defender and flavored it so that it was somewhat like an animated suit of armor construct, rather than being a solid construct full of gadgets and gizmos. It was more like an animated suit of armor, like a helmed horror, even. So it had a hollow space inside of it. So they were keeping the body of Cadmus safe by having it inside Gemcutter, the steel defender. So while they were driving, and Gemcutter was pulling the cart back from the Dwarven lands, I had a rock show up as the random encounter. They managed to the rock headed straight for Gemcutter because it could smell the carrion, and tried to fly off with it. The party actually managed to grapple the rock's legs as it flew off. So I think 3 of them, well, 2 actual party members, Giddy and Wisteria, were hitching a ride on the big bird, whilst Solar Flare, the little dragon, the other little dragon they were trying to protect, bit and scratched at it too. So eventually they managed to take the rock down, doing enough damage. I believe the kill shot was actually an epic longbow shot from the ground by Russell, the Kenku. It was awesome because he had disadvantage at that range, and he still managed to do enough damage to knock it out of the air, which is awesome. And so yeah, they left the body of the Kenku of the rock where it was, and healed up Gemcutter using the mending cantrip. and continued their journey back. Oh, I almost forgot. Before they began their journey to go get diamonds, they also met an NPC called Pom Taris. Now, Pom hasn't shown up in a lot of games because because he's been dead for a long time. The last time he was introduced to any player characters was for the wedding of Baggy and Baggy's wedding. And Clegg. Yeah. They'd already known the party were already familiar with Good King Joe, the leader of the bandits, who was actually a dragon in human form, and he showed up to the wedding with Pom, and they didn't really question it, which is interesting because in previous games it had been discovered that Good King Joe had a demi-lich in his private sanctum amongst his other hoarded treasures, and there was even some evidence of an inert flesh golem. There was clearly something going on where he was attempting to bring somebody back from the dead. In the World of Dragons, and that was originally discovered in the World of Dragons, the party destroyed the demi-lich, and but then of course the party moved. Good King Joe ended up moving from the World of Dragons setting to the parallel timeline, the World of Vampires, where he still is. But when he got there, he met another version of himself who, despite the fact that in the World of Vampires, most of the dragons were supposed to all have been killed, they just Good King Joe discovered that there was indeed a wretched, reclusive version of himself hiding in the ash hole, and also had the demi-lich remains of Pom Taris, and was also trying to bring him back from the dead. So this other Good King Joe, well, the dragon wasn't called Good King Joe, of course. That's his humanoid name. The dragon is actually called Tilbus. No one has seen the other Tilbus in a long time, but now Pom Taris is back. Nobody has questioned this at all. But anyway, they met Pom Taris, who was checking in on Cadmus to make sure he was okay. The party had to confess he was dead, and Pom agreed to help protect the temple of Pelor while they were gone, and raised a mighty fortress and gave them all a hero's feast before they left. And when they came back, he was still there, holding down the fort, quite literally. And there hadn't been any major disturbances. And they accompanied him back to the ash hole, where the bandits were very relieved to see that Pom Taris was okay. And Good King Joe was so frazzled that he burst up from the ground in his dragon form, forgetting to reduce himself to human size so that he could use the door properly. Came out in an absolute blustery panic. Why didn't you tell me where you were going? And Pom responded, if I told you, you wouldn't have let me leave, blah, blah, blah. And So there was this like cute little reunion sort of argument, and then Giddy presented Good King Joe with a piece of the Terraskeen, which, you know, being that Good King Joe, or at least his draconics aspect, is fascinating. It likes to make magic items. He was fascinated by this new material and wanted to know more about it, and soon got distracted and went back to his sanctum to study it. Pom followed him down and waved goodbye, and then they went back to the temple properly, where they resurrected Cadmus and also about 20 of the other temple clerics and paladins that had been killed. So now there are about 40 people alive in this temple, when there had been an awful lot more, but at least it's more than 20. Excuse me. And yeah. So yeah, they did pretty well. They got a lot done. And they still have a few diamonds left over. So we'll see. Giddy even managed to, again, with some ridiculously high low rolling, managed to match the little several pieces of raw diamond together in the way that they. Okay, so the mending cantrip states that you can place two broken pieces of a thing back together, and they join back together if you focus on them for a minute. So he wanted to be able to use mending to stick a bunch of little raw diamonds together to make one big diamond that was worth 1,000 gold pieces. I said he could do it, but he would actually have to find the original small diamonds that broke apart from one another. He'd have to locate the ones that had come out of the wall. Now that I'm thinking about it, I should have been really mean and had a couple of pieces missing from the puzzle. Like, you know, they'd already sold a couple of fragments off that belonged to this chunk, not realizing that they belonged to the same chunk. But yeah, I didn't. And so he managed to, with a series of successful investigation rolls, piece all of, yeah, about, I think it was 20 little diamonds together. Yeah, 20 50 gold piece diamonds together to make one big diamond. Which I think he then presented to Pom, and Pom used Fabricate to make it a perfectly cut diamond instead of a raw diamond. Yeah, so that was fun, and I think that's where we left it, with them resting up at the temple after having resurrected everybody. I don't think there was any more to that game. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I don't remember all the details of the games that we play, because I run a lot of games. But yeah, if you want to make sure you don't miss any of the action, join the Discord server and listen to the games live. Anyway, yesterday, because now it's Tuesday. Monday night, we had the Crimson Liberators game. And now the Crimson Liberators are currently in the Coal City, and they're supposed to be trying to find additional troops and resources to help French fight off the demonic invasion. They know that the part of the reason why they're doing this is because they feel somewhat responsible. think, because it was revealed in a previous game that a member of their own party, Marana, who they already knew was going down a dark path, was going to be the one that led this army of demons to the gates of Branch and destroy it. And according to the wizard Jim Beam, once Branch falls, the rest of the world will follow. So they've been trying to help. They were staying the night at a lovely lizard folk lady's house. And she was preparing breakfast for them. Well, actually, before during the night, Ella had received a message from Marana telling her that she was coming home. So she went up onto the roof and set up a tiny hut just in case that it was evil Marana with her army of demons coming through. But instead, it was an elf called Freya, accompanied by a cocoon. The way that the player has... so the character is an Eladrin. And as you may know, Eladrins go through several seasons in their lifetime. And their personality may change from season to season. This player has taken it one step further and had each personality be dramatically different and even have different names and possibly even different genders. Miranda was female, but the entity that will eventually come out of this cocoon is male. But we'll get to that. So Ella meets with Freya and is delighted because it was Ella who cast the spell, the wish spell, to bring Freya back from the dead. Because one of the reasons why Marana was on a murderous world-killing rampage was because Freya had been taken away from her. So eventually the rest of the party wake up and join Ella up on the roof, despite the fact that their host is cooking a delicious breakfast. And they all meet Freya, and then once Sathiel, the new form of Marana, emerges from his cocoon, they meet him too. And he's all summery and good, and he's a paladin as opposed to, evil wizard necromancer thing. So they have a meet and greet and find out a little bit more about Sathiel and everything. And some of the party members are a little bit annoyed because Marana's backstory was a little tragic, and her personality having been trapped for a long time made some of the other player characters upset. And were a little bit resentful towards Sathiel for being one of the personalities that had repressed Marana. And now clearly Marana has been repressed again. So yeah, one of them in particular, Ember, wanted to learn magic from Marana. And of course, Sathiel the Paladin doesn't really have much in the way of wizardry magic. So Sathiel does, however, offer the instead of just giving her Marana's book of spells, she actually gives the spell book to the other paladin in the group, Aldrak, to do with as he will, including and trusts him to do whatever is the smartest thing to do with it, including destroy it. But I think Aldrak has recently become the leader of the group, and I perceived this as a deference of clearly showing that you're in charge now. I will defer to you. But I think Aldrak was feeling a little bit, because Marana had been sort of the de facto leader of the group before. Now that the Eladrin was back, even though it wasn't Marana anymore, but Sathiel, I think Aldrak was feeling a little bit rejected and unnecessary, and felt like he was going to go on the back burner again. So when the rest of the party went back to the to the magic item shop to acquire the sending stones that they were originally going to go get, as well as help equip Sathiel with new weapons and armor, because he still was wearing the leather armor that Marana had worn, and of course his new more muscular frame had sort of, well, damaged it. Aldrak actually didn't go with them, and he snuck off and went to the pub instead. So anyway, they do acquire some new magic items. Sathiel ends up with a Holy Avenger sword, a Defender sword, and a +1 suit of plate armor and an animated shield, which is probably a bit over. Get used to the gender swap again. He had the money. Sathiel is male, so they so Aldrak went off and started to drink and talk to the bartender about getting kidnapped by the goblins and fighting his way back up to the surface. And the bartender tells him about the Guardians of Coal City, and recommends that they join them. And Aldrak tells him that they've actually met one of the Guardians of Coal City, Francis the Dragon, which they have. And in the meantime, the rest of the party are either on their way to the tavern to join him, having purchased everything they needed to purchase. Though Sathiel herself, along with a couple of the others, have gone to a bookshop to trade some magical books out. But anyway, long story short, they meet back up at the tavern, have a few drinks, and then decide, you know what? Yeah, we're let's do what, since since Sathiel isn't Marana anymore and the threat to Branch is over, let's go kill some slavers. Because the whole party, Aldrak in particular, well, all of them, they've all been enslaved by the goblins and escaped from Goblinopolis. So they have a particular hatred for slavers. And since the bartender told them about some Tlinkali scorpion folk who sometimes come from the desert and capture people and take them as slaves, that might be something that they would, if they want to go find some slavers, they can go find and kill some Tlinkali. So they do. They go off into the desert, where they are, they thanks to Russell and his excellent scouting abilities, they find some Tlinkali hiding in the sand, waiting to ambush them. And they, knowing that the Tlinkali are there, they walk into the trap, allow the Tlinkali to attack them, and then promptly kick their asses, which is fun. They even killed the general. I had a special NPC every time I use the NPC, I'm going to have to tweak it, I think, because every time I use this particular character sheet, this NPC character sheet for my generic Tlinkali boss, he gets his ass kicked. I'm going to have to try and do better. General Scorp is the name of the NPC, but the original General Scorp was killed, so it's not really General Scorp. It's just a generic Tlinkali general, but or squad leader. But they killed the Tlinkali. Well, they killed 5 of the Tlinkali. Well, I think one of them is technically just unconscious thanks to a pseudo dragon sting. And of course, take out the squad leader, and the rest of them run off. So then they set up a temple in the desert and send a message to Fiona and Brench that don't worry, the demon incursion isn't going to happen anymore. Everything's fine, and Mirana's not Mirana anymore. And then they decide that all right, yes, that's how it came about. So while they're contacting Branch to tell them what's up, the Russell reminds them also that his partner, what's he called again? It was on the tip of my brain. It's gone again. Toxis or something. Anyway, so his Dragonborn lover, who they previously notified him that the person that he's been with that he thought was Russell was actually an impersonator, and the real Russell is up on the surface, and you should join him. So they contact him and find that he's been fighting for his life and living in the tunnels, and he's not sure which way is up, and there are so many monsters down there. And they think about, well, we need to be able to help him. We need to help him get out of there. And then they remember that while they were in Goblinopolis, they met a genie, a Dao genie called Terra, whom 2 of them had pledged their patronage to as warlocks. But the Goblin King Jareth had plane shifted her back because she was in his way. So he got rid of her. So they decide Ella casts Gate to bring Terra back, and we had to put a pin in it there because some of the party members were tired and had to go to bed. So, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they have to say to Terra to try and convince her to dive down through the earth and retrieve this Dragonborn. Yeah. So it's been fun. It was crazy. A lot more happy than the last few games, but I think they needed a break from monster after monster after monster. So this was good. And tonight we've got the Hellfire Hooligans game. Tomorrow night is the Plane of Asgarad. So like and subscribe if you want to make sure that you click the bell to make sure you don't miss that episode, that game recap video. Alternatively, like I mentioned before, you could join us at the Games and Geekery Discord server and listen in onto the games live. And if you like our style, you can even sign up to play. And I hope to see you there. But in the meantime, have a good game.